My mother was a pioneer in balancing work and family before this became a universal need or topic. She earned her doctorate when 9 out of 10 PhDs were men. She worked when few other mothers in our neighborhood did. She established and directed a department of psychologists at a major Boston hospital when no woman had done this before. On top of these things, her service accomplishments were many. President of the Massachusetts and American Psychological Associations. Again, all things that very few women, particularly women with children, or even generally that very few people had done. My mother told me of the day that she and my late father, Charles W. Johnson, had just started their family, and she told them that she wanted to go back to school to get her doctorate. He supported this, but asked that she continue to take care of the household and children, which is what all the other wives of corporate husbands of their era did. My mother did this and more. She used her income to pay someone to take care of the house, cook and clean. She paid for all of her children to go to the best schools in the area. She paid for all the extracurricular activities that we were interested in. This may sound like she wasn't there, but she was. She only paid for all of the invisible things that made life comfortable and fostered intellectual life and growth. She was there mornings, evenings, weekends, and all school vacations for the nurturing and emotional and intellectual development of her children. She always planned and paid for our family vacations. For many years, our vacations followed a theme: Aztec and Mayan history. We would travel for 2 weeks at a time to Mexico, then Guatemala, and later Peru. One of these weeks we would explore the ruins and artifacts, and the other we would relax at the ocean or countryside. She provided for and was there for all the important parts of her children's lives. Today we may not have a book of her recipes, but we have an excellent model of how to balance work and family. And yes, we have a couple of books too. As you walked in today, and here in the front, there are posters of my mother in different life stages, and some of the different parts of her life that collectively made my mother who she was. A Midwestern-raised child, daughter of Marie Collins and Frank Oates Goode, and sister of Frankie. A mother to me, my sisters Kathy and Margaret, a consummate professional psychologist, fun-loving and loyal friend, as depicted in the photo with her W2W friends at the Kentucky Derby, a trip she organized and that was symbolic because of her family's roots in Kentucky. A loving wife to Wayne, and a loving and very loved grandmother to her grandchildren, depicted in photos on Martha's Vineyard where we all gathered every summer. Today, December 3rd, is my mother's birthday, and today we will hear many reflections of different stages and parts of her life, and with these reflections, may we all celebrate the life of Norine Goode Johnson. So let the stories continue.
Dr. Maynard Poland, unfortunately, was not able to attend today, but he sent in a letter that he would like me to read. Reflecting on my friendship with a very special person, Norine Goode Johnson. I first noticed Norine Goode in 1950 when we were sophomores at Broad Ripple High School in Indianapolis. There was something very distinctive about her that made her very attractive, a certain quiet elegance. She listened patiently, smiled frequently, and had a very good sense of humor and a distinctive laugh. I think that carries on in the family.
Yes.
It was some years later I came to realize that those character traits that set Norine apart as a special person were evident even back in high school. Norine was a member of a precision swim team. I presume was a much better scholar than I was in high school. We didn't talk much about academics. In fact, at that age, I didn't have the slightest notion of how to talk to a girl. But she didn't seem to mind and was patient with my periods of silence, as we were very comfortable with each other's company. What we might have lacked in conversation, we made up for in dancing. We went to both high school club and school-sponsored dances after football games in the fall, and summer dances at Westlake. I don't think we missed one over 2 years, especially if Ray Anthony's or Billy Maier's band was playing. And if we didn't dance every dance, we certainly didn't sit out many. I wasn't particularly a skilled dancer, but Norine had to be skilled and patient at what little dancing skills I had. I can still hear Ray Anthony playing at last on a warm summer moonlit night at Westlake. Me in a white dinner jacket and Norine wearing a gardenia corsage that I had scraped up $3.50 to buy. Although we went to the same college after high school, we went our own ways. After some 35 years or so, we met again at our high school reunion. She attended with Wayne. And after that, a small group of Broad Ripple classmates and spouses began meeting once a year in February in Sarasota, Florida. During those yearly reunions, I learned about her distinguished career and understood more thoroughly how very special were her qualities that had attracted me to her in high school. But to me, she was the same Norine, same smile, distinctive laugh, same patient listening. But she had developed, or was I just now noticing, a remarkable way of expressing an opinion. Assured, but not in your face. Informed, but not show off. And to the point, not belaboring. And what wonderful discussions and times together that little group of 8 have had each year, just sitting and talking for hours on end, enjoying each other's company. A rather distinguished company of 8, I might add, whose members' character and accomplishments are in the same distinguished category as Norine. One of those members of our group, Carolyn Mutz, upon learning that Norine had passed, remarked, quote, "Reconnecting with Norine and getting to know Wayne has meant a lot to us these past few years. Her passion for her work, her spontaneous sense of humor, her love and respect for her family, children and grandchildren, somehow deepened our appreciation of the roots we all shared growing up in the Midwest in the 1950s. Those were good times, and though sometimes very difficult, created real people who went on to follow their dreams. We'll miss her." I will add, not only will we miss her, the world will miss her. She was one of those wonderful people who has left the world a much better place by her time here. And I will say to Norine's daughters, what they already know: if you could have chosen your ancestors carefully, you could not have done any better than your mother. Our loss is heaven's gain, and we will love her forever. Dr. Norine Goode, November 2000. With that, I will ask Kathy.
I'm so incredibly touched by how great my friends and friends from work have been, and just so amazing to see all of you here today, so thank you for coming. My mother and I shared the same middle name, Carol. We were both named after Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland. It's because of that, perhaps, that I have a huge passion for children's stories. So let me start with a quote from Winnie the Pooh, one of my favorites. When Christopher Robin says to Pooh, "If ever there is tomorrow, when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is that even if we're apart, I will always be with you." My mother always wanted us to know this. We are smart. We must believe in ourselves. We can accomplish anything we set our minds to. In fact, she recently wrote a note to my 2 girls Taylor and Morgan, that stated, "History is waiting for contribution, whatever you wish it to be." And we know she will always be with us, and she has always been there for us. Growing up as a young child, I must admit, I thought I wanted a mother to be like all the other moms in the neighborhood. Home when I got home from school, baking yummy cookies in the kitchen, taking me shopping. But of course, as I grew a little bit older, I realized that's not what I wanted at all. The mother I had was more than that to me. Today I want to share 3 things about my mother that have sort of set a path for me in my own life. First, Mom introduced us to the world and the love of adventures. She believed that there was an adventure waiting for each of us every day, but it was our job to go after it, to seize it, to embrace it. We didn't just have vacations, we had adventures. We visited countries in Latin America way back when we were very young, and many of our friends had never been there. They always went to Europe or local in the US. But while there, we were learning about the Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans. Everything had some cultural piece to it. When we had our own children, my mother wanted to introduce each of them to Europe. And every summer, as a family, and you heard Camry mention this, and you might have seen the picture up front, we went to the vineyard together as a family, where we had some traditional adventures and some new ones every year. Through these experiences, she gave me the love of travel, a love of exploration, and a love of being with family. Second, my mother believed family was everything. She would always say that. When she was diagnosed in the 1980s with breast cancer, I was a sophomore at Vassar College. The moment I heard, I remember walking to the Pond One campus and sitting there. I stayed there all night into the morning and watched the sunrise. I wrote a poem for her that day. And why do I share this? Because she actually framed that poem and she hung it in her house for decades. Only after 20 years did she take it down to make room for another grandchild's piece of art. For those of you who have been to my mother's house, it's filled with pictures drawn by us, our children, pictures of the family, and even in her bedroom are huge, massive pictures like these today, but of each of her grandchildren. Family was everything to her. She taught me that family is everything and that love is verbally and emotionally shared. Even the last week of her life when she wasn't speaking, the last few days, she would just look at us deeply, passing her love through her eyes to us. Third, my mother was incredibly giving. We used to joke that my mother used to, in the days when she drank alcohol and ate sugar, and we all know she stopped that, and that's something neither my sisters nor I learned from her. We didn't stop that. But before she gave those up, the only thing she didn't give or share was chocolate turtles and Frango mints, which she hid in her dresser. But that was the only thing she didn't share. She shared her love, her friendship, her support, her money when we needed it, her home. My husband Shane and I moved in with her twice, with her and Wayne. Her time, her guidance on bringing up our children and how to have a really strong marriage. And of course, she gave so much professionally, and you'll hear more about that from some of her friends, professional friends today. She was so giving that when she was diagnosed last year with colon cancer, 2 months after we lost our father, she was more concerned about how we would deal with it rather than how she would cope with her own diagnosis. By watching her approach to life, she taught me to care about others, to give, and to always, always be supportive of those who are important to you. My mom was a huge part of my life, and anyone who knows me well knows that. She taught me how to love, how to view life as full of potential adventures, how to have fun, to laugh robustly and not timidly, how to be kind, supportive, and how to be a professional woman while balancing that with family, which is so important. I'm grateful to have had my mom, who was not, in my mind, like the other moms I grew up with. Today, my mother would have been 76 years old. You had heard Pam mention it's her birthday, and I miss her terribly, as I know many of us do here. To quote from Winnie the Pooh again, how lucky I am to have had something that makes saying goodbye so hard. So I'm going to ask my youngest daughter, Morgan, to come up. Morgan started taking the clarinet just a few months ago, and she's very, very close to her grandmother, like all the grandchildren are. And she wanted to play on the clarinet, Ode to Joy, in honor of my grandmother. And please know she's been playing for 2 months, and I commend her for coming up and doing it. Morgan?
Thank you, Morgan. Before I invite Dr. Roz Moore up, I have just one more reading from Bernard, who couldn't be here. Dear Dad, we are so sorry that this is coming in last minute. We are praying that all goes well tomorrow with the, quote, rebirth celebrations, and that all of you will be pleased with how Norine is remembered. I included several people in this email so that there is a great chance of someone reading it in time. God bless Ron and family. Grand Norine will be missed greatly by her family, including her quiver of 10 grandchildren. Norine was a strong woman, known to succeed in anything she decided to do. One thing she decided to do was enjoy her family and make each member feel special. We felt special when she came all the way to Nigeria for our wedding. We loved to see her and Pa Wayne enjoying each other. Truly, she loved Dad and made him feel special every day. We remember her playing with our children on our visits and loved what became the annual Martha's Vineyard trip. Truly, family was important to Norine, and we were blessed to be part of hers. Love, Ron, Bernard, and with both Joshua and Jessica. So, Dr. Roz Moore, if you are here, Dr. Roz is a dear friend and colleague from Kennedy Memorial Hospital. Thanks for coming.
In the early 70s, I was an intern in the Department of Psychology at Kennedy Hospital, where Norine was the director. During that time, I got engaged to be married, and Norine and a number of the staff got together and got a gift that they gave me. Well, they gave me a lovely, elegant glass teapot. And I thought, wow, this teapot's fabulous. I've never seen anything like it. Now, Norine was like a teapot. It was elegant, It could handle a lot of hot water. It produced great tea. And Norine recruited, produced a very good department of psychology at Kennedy Hospital. And she could take a lot of hot water from the administration, from the healthcare system, and she was very elegant. I'm very grateful for her many talents and her toughness, actually, as a leader, visionary. So I just leave you with the image of this elegant teapot, which actually reminds me of Norine, her leadership and toughness and elegance. Thank you.
A very dear friend of Norine's, Margaret Taylor. Norine met Margaret later in life, about 60 years ago, but midlife.
This is Norine's book.
Well, Norine and I, and Kitty, and Ginny, and Jen, and a woman called Mo, met at a group called Midlife. And we were all in midlife at the time, facing new and individual challenges, and formed a remarkable bond spanning now 25 years. And Maria Harris talks about the power and possibility in each of us in this midlife time. And she says that at 50, we cross a threshold of age and attitude. And we are asked to do 4 more tasks. And the first one is to proclaim liberty throughout the land and to work for justice for all. And Norine did this in her work, at all levels of her work, with a special concern for the welfare of young women. And 2, to return to property and family. And Norine did go on an ancestral journey more than once, I think, returning to place and people of her youth, and brought all the memories of that time back to her family, to those she loved. Wayne, Camree, Kathy, Margaret, her sons-in-law, and her grandchildren. And then 3, to take inventory, to examine our relationships, to power, to possessions, to people, to what you cherish. And Norine knew where she stood in all these relationships. We sometimes talked about these things, all of us did, as we walked in the Arboretum or around Jamaica Pond or in New Hampshire or Maine. But you know, there was always a touch of lightness and fun, which made it all very wonderful. And it was wonderful to have such a wise woman as a friend and a companion. And 4, to tell our story, to give witness to who we are, to provide a legacy to those who follow. You did this with courage, competence, beauty, and grace, Norine, in your living, in your work, in your writing, and in your dying. Your children and grandchildren inherit a rich legacy indeed. Norine is the first of our midlife group to complete this journey. And so, dear friend, we do sound the trumpet for you. We celebrate you and give thanks for you.
Next on the list, we have Dr. Elena Eisman from the Massachusetts